The reason I love continuous curve designs is because it really highlights the corners of your blocks. If you've pieced your squares and you think, man, this is amazing, using a design that goes to each corner is really going to pull attention to that part of the quilt. I'm Angela Walters from Quilting is My Therapy, and this is a free class I put together to show you how to become successful with quilting with rulers. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to quilt those continuous curves with your Elvira ruler. I wanted to be able to quilt continuous curve without having to reposition my ruler. After some deep thought and concentration, I came up with the Elvira ruler. And Elvira is going to allow you to quilt those curves from all directions without rotating your ruler, which I just love. Elvira works in 2-inch blocks. Let me show you just how easy it is to use those reference points on your rulers to create that continuous curve effect. Starting from a corner, I'm going to quilt my first arc so that I end at my next point. And I'm going to do that by either positioning Elvira like this, or I could have positioned it like this and used this part of the curve. It's completely up to you. But once I get to the next line, I'm going to quilt along this seam by quilting arcs that are on different sides. So positioning just like so, using that needle stop to be snug into the edge of the foot. Also looking to my horizontal reference lines to see that they're somewhat lining up along the seam. Then I'm going to quilt along my ruler until I get to the end. As I'm quilting, I'm pushing down on the ruler and moving the quilt. Once I get towards the edge of my fingertips, I'm going to reposition my hands. That's going to give me the most control. And if my block isn't quite exactly 2 inches, I'm just going to move my ruler down so that my reference lines are along those seams, and then continue on. Once I get to the edge of my ruler, I still have a little bit of block left to quilt. So I'm going to reposition and pull it down to this one. The line that I'm aiming for is the third reference line from the top or the bottom, and that's going to give me that repeating shape. Once I reach the end of my area, what I'm going to do is slide my ruler up, take a moment and make sure my reference lines are somewhere near the seams, and then work my way back up the ruler. Now, if you're not sure about all the positions of the rulers, don't worry. I have downloadable quilting diagrams that show you step by step how to quilt this with your Elvira ruler. Repositioning to get my last one. And I have my first part of my continuous curve. Now I'm going to repeat in all the vertical lines by quilting a curve to my next area, positioning my ruler, checking my reference lines, and repeating what I've just done. Remember, it's the third line that's going to give me my repeating shape. So when I go to reposition it, that's the line I'm looking for. Once I'm finished, I need to reposition my ruler. I could either move it up or down so that I have that third line on either side along the bottom of my seam. I'm also looking at the vertical reference lines to make sure that they're running along the seam as well. I've reached the edge of my ruler, so I'm going to go back to my third line and continue on. Lining up my 2 reference lines and then quilting along that until I get to the next point. I'm using the hot pink thread so that you can see the quilting, but if you're quilting along with your coordinating thread kit, this would be the perfect place to use your cream or your light purple colored thread. Once my vertical seams are done, I'm going to quilt another curve to the corner and on down so that I can quilt the same along the horizontal seams, making sure it's somewhat lined up and then doing the same thing that I did on the vertical. If I find that my lines are off a little bit as I'm going, I can pause and reposition my ruler, lining it up. That's especially the case if your block happens to be just a little bit larger than 2 inches. And once I get to the edge of my ruler, I'm going to reposition and continuing on. Now, if I were doing this on an actual quilt, I probably would rotate the quilt because I prefer working vertically. But since I'm in the video, I want to show you what it looks like horizontally. Once my verticals and my horizontals are finished, all that's left to do is to quilt arcs from point to point until I return to my starting point. And once you get back to the starting point, you have a beautiful checkerboard block that has those nice continuous curves inside of it. Now, if you happen to stumble onto this class and you have no idea what I'm talking about, welcome. This is a free machine quilting with rulers class that I'm putting on just for you. I'm using my brand new rulers that I designed with creative grids to create different motifs and effects on this quilt. And if you want, you can buy the kit and the rulers and quilt along with me. Or you can just soak in the video. All the information about that is below in the description box. Well, now that you've seen how easy it is to do on a sewing machine, it's just as easy on a long arm because I don't have to work from all sides of that ruler. Let me show you what I mean. Starting from a corner, I'm going to quilt my first arc so that I end at my next point. Once I get to the next line, I'm going to quilt along this seam by quilting arcs that are on different sides. Once I get to the edge of my ruler, I'm going to reposition. That's going to give me my outer curve and then work my way back up the ruler. I'm going to repeat in all the vertical lines by quilting a curve to my next area, positioning my ruler, and repeating what I've just done. Once my vertical seams are done, I'm going to quilt another curve to the corner and on down so that I can quilt the same along the horizontal seams. This time I'll just use this part of the ruler so you can see what it looks like to quilt my arc to the other point. Once my verticals and my horizontals are finished, all that's left to do is to quilt arcs from point to point until I return to my starting point. All right, so whether you have a sewing machine or a long arm, now you're ready to use Elvira to quilt those continuous curves in your checkerboard blocks. Let me know if you have any questions by leaving them in the comments below and subscribe so that you don't miss any of these videos. And I'll see you in the next video where we're going to talk about using Taj to create some fun border effects. I'll see you next time.